Bonjour, it's Tanisha and welcome back to the final episode of How to Paint Studio Ghibli Mountains. If you haven't watched the previous episodes, make sure you click the links in the description below to get a quick refresher on color theory and my initial explanations. And again, I'm doing this tutorial as I know a lot of you guys asked me for more detailed explanation because even with my paint with me, you can really get my thought process through it. So I made a 3 series for this painting tutorial to kind of walk you through my thought process and how I paint these scenes. And for this video, I'll basically do a recap of what we learned so far and use all the skills I taught in my previous video to paint this final mountain. Also, if you want a more in-depth explanation of what art supplies I'm using, make sure you look at my previous videos. But to recap, I'm using a square brush, or you can use a rounded brush and then a pointed brush basically to add the details. And I'm using my Himimiya gouache sets for the colors. And in terms of what colors I'm using, I laid out some of the basic colors. We usually use a lot of white, and you probably saw me in the beginning use my palette knife to pick out some of the colors. That helps me just kind of lay it out nicely on my palette. But basically for this mountain that you see in the picture, I wanted to mix some of the brown colors with the ochre, and also the colors that I'm seeing is also a bit of black, so I've touched a little bit on the black to stop mixing it, and I kind of just go back and forth looking at the picture and see what more colors it needs. And as I was mixing the colors, I decided to add a little bit of the white with it just to have the initial base layer. And of course, as I go later, I will add more and more layers until I could get something closer to the picture. But my eyes were seeing some white, so I wanted to first mix that in and shape out the outline of the mountains. And if you followed my previous tutorials, you know that I was using a square brush or even a rounded brush to kind of sketch out the outline of the mountain. But here I kind of just wanted to use my pointed brush to show you guys that you can make do with whatever supplies you have. So if you had just had a pointed brush, just go ahead and shape out the outline with it or use whatever supplies that you have. So this is just to have a basic outline. It doesn't have to be exactly in the picture. Here we're all about having fun and enjoying the process. So don't stress yourself out to make it exactly the same. If you get a rough sketch of it, that's good enough. We'll add more detail and make it look great in the end. Once I'm done with the outline, you will notice that I'm not putting too much detail as I go in the bottom, so I'm just using some of the water to kind of just block out the shape of it, but more details will go on the top. And then from my previous tutorial again, you should remember where the sunlight is coming from. And here in this picture, it's actually coming from the top right corner, and that's where you'll see like the snow looking the brightest. The part of the mountain that doesn't have snow also looks the brightest, so I'm going in and mixing some white with it to kind of showcase this highlight that's going on this mountain. And you'll notice as I'm blocking out the colors and adding more layers on top, I'm not trying to make it look perfect. This is a rock, it has a bunch of crevices, it doesn't have to be perfect. And again, I mentioned before, it's one of my favorite things of painting nature because nothing has to be perfect. There's beauty in like imperfect things. So yeah, I kind of just let my hands flow around, add the colors where I see it, but it doesn't have to be perfect. I try to make sure like some of the crevices are kind of showing in and keep building up on the details as I add more layers later on. And I know you can't probably notice much, but this is helping me with building the foundation. So now that I know where my highlighted area of the mountain would be, I'm going in, touching in some black and mixing it with the brown to add the shaded part. And this is where you'll see exactly my hand motion on how I'm building the shaded area. It's not completely painting all over the mountain. It's being meticulous, but not too meticulous. You kind of just like let your hand jitter away. I know I used that word in my previous video, but you kind of have this shape that you follow along. I used to say inverted veins in my previous video, or you could think of it as inverted tree branches just to kind of build up those shadowed area of the mountain. And this time I'm blocking out more area. It's because I've painted 3 mountains in a row at this point, and I was kind of getting used on how it should go. So the more practice you have, the quicker you can do into building those colors, and you'll feel more confident with it. So you can probably follow my tutorial once or twice and still feel like you're struggling, but keep going, keep practicing, keep thinking of some of the pointers I gave you, and you can also add your own style to it. But the more practice you have, the more your brain's gonna know what to do and your hand will just flow. But until then, I will try my best to explain how my hand motion is working and how my thought process is. Anyway, that was a lot of words. This is why I think of myself as an artist, not a speaker. So I'm hoping my hand is helping you understand where I'm placing the shadows. And again, it's from this previous knowledge about where the sun is falling. So every little peaks that you're seeing in this mountain, it has a left side and the right side. And I said the right side is seeing the sun. So I'm adding the shadows all on the left side of those peaks. And as you go down, it's further darker. So I added in the shadows and I'm blending it with the actual colors just because it's not all the same color. You have different tints and shades, so I'm mixing in and kind of blending it, but not too much, and trying to imagine where those crevices would be and add those shadows there. I know in my previous tutorial I mentioned not using straight black as a shaded color, but for this mountain, as I was painting, I just wanted to mix black with brown to create the shaded colors. I could have used blue. I don't know why I added blue. Actually, yes, I do know why I added blue. I was using it for the previous painting and then I cleaned up my palette, but this one I kind of just want to show you. I wanted to paint a mountain more on the brown side, but I don't use straight black. I make sure I'm mixing the black with my darkest brown to create additional shadows. And as you can see, I'm building up layers, building up details. So now that I'm adding more shadows, you can see I'm blocking less and less big chunks of the shaded part. I'm basically now starting to follow those inverted vein kind of motion that I would explain, or inverted branches, and just kind of imagining where are the parts that the sun will see the less, so those crevices and little holes there, and kind of use my pointer brush to squiggle it over it. And I believe that this mountain to me didn't seem as complicated as the other one that I did before. So I felt like it had a good base layer and midtones with it. So I went straight into building the snow. And as you can see, to start painting the snow on the shaded area, I did not use straight white because that's the whitest part. So that's what the sun should see. But on the shaded part, if you look at the picture, you definitely see some tinted blue to the snow, so that's why I went in and mixed some blue with the white to be able to create the shaded snow, and I started adding the snow part on the mountain. And in terms of how I'm adding the snow, where to place it, there's not an exact science for it. You can follow my hand motion and do this open V in the bottom and kind of make like veiny motion and block out more as you go down. And you can also use the picture for reference. I was kind of loosely following it, as you've probably noticed, but it still looked pretty similar in the end. So just gonna look at the picture, see where you see the snow falling and try to copy it, but it doesn't have to be exact. More practice will get you closer. But as long as you're using the main pointers to add the snow, it will get pretty close to it. So from the picture, it looked like there was more snow in the bottom. That's why when you see me painting the top peaks, it's just like a couple dots and lines here and there to kind of follow the shape of those ragged rocks. But as I go down, I kind of just move my paintbrush loosely to create more space that the snow fell into. And yeah, that's the way I've been following the painting. And yeah, I just go through this motion until I feel satisfied of where I placed my colors. And now that I feel like I'm done with the shaded part, I can always go back later to add my details, but I felt like it was time to move on to the part of the mountain that was seeing the sun. So for that, I used straight white. I mixed it a little bit with blue, but not as much because now it was adding the whitest part of the mountain because that's where the highlighted part was. And yep, I just went straight in with the similar way I've been adding the snow on the mountain and following the same motion just to create the snow on the mountain that was seeing the sun. And I know it kind of looks like I'm putting white all over the place, but in my mind, I was thinking about where the sun was hitting. So always when I'm placing the white, I tend to put it a little bit more on the right side because that's where the sun's hitting those little peaks. So look closely and you will notice me kind of have some places that I would put it, and do the same for your painting. And of course, I'm looking into the picture and there's like other places there's snow, so I'll kind of follow loosely and add the snow over there as well. The main point here is to not use your paintbrush and completely cover everything with snow because we want to be able to create dimension and be able to see those peaks and crevices, and being able to use our pointed brush or square brush, you can totally do it with that. You want to be able to place the colors in specific places to show there's some sort of dimension. This part of this mountain is in the shadow, this part is in the sun. You can only use the colors to do that, so that's why keep in mind where the sunlight is hitting and work with the colors this way. And I don't know if you're noticing, at this point I was just enjoying my time. This painting is getting close to being done, and from the picture you could see it was more foggy or something like that, and it looked like it was a lot of snow. So this was very loosely following the picture. I was just having fun placing my snow on the mountain and keeping the same hand motion I've been using to place the snow, and yeah, I'll be done soon. And like I said before, you could totally be done after these steps, but you know me, I always love adding details, so I kind of went back with more white. I make sure to clean my brush so it's not kind of mixing the white with other colors, and I went to add some more white on top to create the highlighted part. I think it's a nice little detail that I like to add to finish it up, but yeah. You can totally stop after that or be extra like me. It's all up to you, it's your painting, so do whatever makes you happy at this point. Alright, I hope that you enjoy watching me paint or painted along with me. This was a long painting series, but I really hope that this helped you in some way. Let me know what you thought about how I explain everything, if there's anything I need to improve on. I'll try my best to be a better teacher. I just been enjoying painting without really explaining, but I really want to share my knowledge going forward. So let me know what you thought about it down below, and I will see you in the next one. Allez, bye!